This week's Parsha VaYakheil starts with Moshe assembling Israel to tell them a message. VaYakheil Moshe et kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Why does the Torah use the word VaYakheil to describe Moshe's gathering together of Israel rather than some other terminology? Well, one can gather people together for many different reasons. Using the word VaYakheil to describe the action denotes that it was done with a very specific purpose in mind. In Parshat VaYelech, one of the last mitzvahs of the Torah that Moshe teaches us is about the mitzvah of VaYakheil. Every 7 years, on the first day of Chol HaMoed Sukkot, after the Shemitah year, the people are to gather in the temple. There in the temple, the current leader of Israel is to teach the Torah to the people that gathered together for this particular purpose. Who is commanded to show up for this VaYakheil mitzvah? Everyone, men, women, and children. The Torah commands even the infants to be brought to the temple for VaYakheil. It stands to reason then that the word VaYakheil in our parsha must therefore mean that Moshe gathered together everyone, men, women, and children, in order to teach or instruct them about something important. What was so important for Moshe to give over such that he needed to gather everyone together? Obviously, Moshe was now giving over the instructions for building the Mishkan. The people needed to know what materials to bring and what inherent talents were required in order to fashion and construct the Mishkan and its parts. These instructions needed to be addressed to all members of the nation, as each person had their talents or wealth that could be applied. This included all men, women, and even children. Every single person would be able to contribute or participate in the creation of the Mishkan. As such, the Torah used the word VaYakheil to show that Moshe addressed everyone, all men, women, and children of Israel, to instruct them about the building of the Mishkan. Each one, in turn, would decide how they would participate, whether materially or through their individual talents. This sounds great and makes a lot of sense. However, it didn't quite happen like this. The Torah tells us that after assembling all of Israel, Moshe first started talking about the Shabbat, and only afterwards talked about building the Mishkan. Why would Moshe start off talking about the Shabbat if the purpose for their assembly was clearly about building the Mishkan? Ramban points out that Israel had just grievously sinned by worshipping the golden calf. Israel understood that due to their sin, they had come perilously close to destruction. Israel now worried that even though God had relented, perhaps God would not really want to take them back. As such, Moshe started off by first talking about the Shabbat, and only then about the Mishkan, as it showed that God had forgiven them and they had truly regained their former status. How does the Shabbat in particular highlight God's forgiveness to Israel? In last week's Parsha Kitisa, God declared Shabbat to be an everlasting sign between himself and Israel. By first mentioning the Shabbat before anything else, Moshe showed Israel that God was reaffirming that bond between them. This was a very important step to make, as only after Israel was reassured as to their relationship with God was Moshe then able to talk about building the Mishkan. Once again, we see the importance of the Shabbat. It is not just a day of rest. It is a special sign between us and God, one that shows our everlasting bond, deserving to gather all the people together just to make sure that they know it too. Shabbat Shalom.